We are headed into Civil War and World War III within the next 6 months to 2 years, and I am going to show you proof. Okay, I lied, it's not evidence, but it is very interesting and riveting analysis that I think you may find interesting. For our first exhibit, we have the date of World War I. 1914. Do I think about 1918? What's particularly important is to look at both the Saturn, marked by this Reaper crescent next to the sun, and of course, Pluto, that we see both at 6 and 1 degrees Cancer respectively. Pluto transits around the zodiac every 248 years, and Kronos takes about 28 to 30 years to transit through the zodiac. By analyzing 30 years out of every 250 or so years, we can really gain incredible insight, marking the passage and stages of each event. So it's very interesting to see that Saturn and Pluto have initiated a brand new karmic cycle that brought about the transformation of the world. For context, the last time we had a cycle like this was literally around March 21st, 2020, which not only activated the apocalypse cycle, but completely transformed a whole lot of operations in the world. Yes, by apocalypse cycle, I do mean death with Saturn, Pluto with pestilence, Mars with war, we'll talk about that one later, and Jupiter in its fall in Capricorn representing family. So following that, we had food shortages during the 2021 and 2022 pestilence, had people sick with whatever pandemic was there. And of course, the tensions between Ukraine and Russia had kicked off at every stage every 2 years since 2020, when Mars subsequently conjuncted Kronos in Cap, Aqua, and Pisces. We also want to make the distinction that unlike 2020, which represented the collective organization of ruling territories and authorities after like several centuries, 1915 in Cancer of individual territories gaining stateship represents the beginning of these conflicts. Other things we want to look at are Neptune at 29 degrees Cancer, Uranus in Aquarius, Jupiter at the end of Taurus, and Mars making a smooth sextile to both Jupiter and Neptune. Boom, that brings us to our next exhibit, World War II. Now, compared to World War I, where Neptune is at the end of Cancer, World War II is Neptune's progression up to the end of Virgo. Remember that for later. As we know, the events of World War II greatly influenced the events all around the world that we're experiencing now, especially the current Israel and Palestine conflict. And what do we see here? We see Saturn near Pluto getting ready to start a new cycle. But what we want to note once again is the individual basis of Saturn, this time with Uranus. Remember that for highlighting the birth of new states, new territories, and a change of who owns certain territories in light of colonialism and neocolonialism. We also want to take into account the god of war Mars transiting Hades, which is very telling. And that's what brings us to today, our second to last exhibit. Saturn, that met with Hades in 2020, is now getting ready to enact its Taurus Gemini 30 to 60 degree signature from Pluto as it brings the end of this world cycle, aka the end of the world as we know. That's why it's significant to look at the outer planets in these original to social areas, almost as if we're getting ready to change the landscape of how we understand what territories are what and how we identify ourselves. We also want to look at Neptune's position at Pisces, which in 6 to 7 months, or by February of 2025, the North Node will be in Pisces with Neptune and Saturn, kind of like how the North Node in Virgo was with Neptune in Virgo as well. So what does any of this have to do with Civil War? Well, earlier we were talking about the Neptune cycle with World War I and World War II. World War I, where it was 29 degrees Cancer, and World War II, where it was 27 through 29 degrees Virgo going into Libra. Well, as we can see, Neptune is 29 degrees Pisces, which in and of itself wouldn't really mean that much until I present to you our final exhibit. America's first Civil War. And you guessed it, before the first two great wars, Neptune was in Pisces. In fact, that was the very last time Neptune was in Pisces. And like I said, we would come back to Mars near Uranus of innovation and revolution, sparking a cycle with the god of war, which was heavily prevalent with the conjunction with Pluto in World War II. Well, oddly enough, Civil War was sparked with the Mars conjunction to Uranus in Gemini, while Neptune was in Pisces. And if you look today, Neptune is in Pisces and Mars is about to hit Uranus. In fact, if you look 2 years from now, Mars is going to be exactly conjunct Uranus in Gemini. So that means now, since it takes Mars 2 years to go around the zodiac, I just showed you where it is now, and the next time it's going to be back around here, just like in the first Civil War. So I can't really say these observations alone are evidence that war is imminent, but that's not to say that there aren't forces at play ready to trigger civil war for any reason at a moment's notice. Given that the sparking of this Mars conjunct Uranus and Taurus transit begins throughout the next few months, and elections are coming through, and Ukraine is still at war with Russia, and we have conflicts with Israel and Palestine, seeing all of these things give me the impression that in this video, I'm going to explain to you how the activity of the nodes being hit by the planets have correlated with these news of war. In fact, it was so predictable, there's video footage of myself and other astrologers pretty much calling it before these events happened, just because we knew that the eclipses were going to be activated. That being said, if you haven't seen my proof Civil War and World War III is happening within 6 months to 2 years, it's on Instagram, it's on TikTok, it's on YouTube. Please check it out. It'll definitely make more sense of what I'm about to predict. For our first exhibit, we have October of 2023. Of course, when I saw this, I coined it during that period as the 6-month road to warfare, where we're going to go from 2023 to April of 2024. To me, that looked like troops and forces are going to marshal themselves relative to whatever conflicts. And what happened during that period? We had, of course, the Hamas incident on the 7th of 2023. All right. Which isn't the first time Israel and Hamas have been at odds. It's a 30-plus year conflict, if not more. But for it to happen during the eclipse, coincidence? I think. Next, we do have April of 2024. This was the next 6-month period. So 2023, it was in Libra. And then 6 months later, here, when I had seen that, you know, that was once again, especially with the God of War getting ready to go through there, an indicator that we're going to see more conflict, obviously. And what happened during this period? Russia had finally declared war on Ukraine, even though they had already been skirmishing since 2022. So why is that relevant? Because of course now we are days away from another eclipse, peeps. As you can see, it's not a coincidence that Israel is being bombed on the anniversary or around then of when Hamas initially reignited their conflict with Israel. I just want to make this video to show that the presence of the nodes being activated here and these conflicts happening is not a coincidence. It's science. All right. And the reason why I want to mention that is because in 6 months, we are going to have, I think, one of the most potent eclipses we've ever had. Yes, I am referring to March 2025. That's going to be the next time after right now we have the nodes activated. And I predict within that 6-month period, World War III, Civil War, more conflicts. I hope I'm wrong. I don't think it's that simple to just predict like that. But considering we're 3 for 3 right now, we are 3 for 3. It'd be interesting to see with Pisces that brings in the entire collective and world how what's happening now might draw in the rest of the world. Please understand with the nodes, this is all destined, it's fated, it's a culmination of what happened previously to lead to here, because all these things didn't just happen out of nowhere. And this is where in that video I mentioned to reference, we talk about how Uranus was in Gemini the last time these wars were prominent, Neptune was in Aries. So we're seeing a bit of a repeating of history. And I would love your thoughts down below. We're here, it's happening. What do you think? Yes, I am referring to March 2025. That's going to be the next time after right now we have the nodes activated. And I predict within that 6-month period, World War III, Civil War, more conflicts. I hope I'm wrong. I don't think it's that simple to just predict like that. But considering we're 3 for 3 right now, we are 3 for 3. It'd be interesting to see with Pisces that brings in the entire collective and world how what's happening now might draw in the rest of the world. As you've seen, back in October of 2024, I analyzed the nodal eclipse cycles coming out of Aries and Libra and predicting what the March 2025 eclipse in Pisces would or may produce over the next 6 months from then. In part 1 of this series that I recorded July of 2024, we looked more into the Pluto and Saturn cycles that happened during World War I, Civil War, and World War II, primarily Civil War and World War II. Make sure you watch those videos. If you're on TikTok, just scroll further down, you'll see it. If you're on Instagram or YouTube, I'll kind of clip them together so you can watch them all back to back. Really good reference. So, looks like we are here. And what I really want to unveil with this video is not only what's happening with Iran and Israel, but this No Kings protest, which is very interesting if we look deeper into it. After that, I'm going to show you the natal charts for this month to the eclipse in Virgo in September, and let you know the 3 stages as we are in between the eclipse from Pisces season to the upcoming one in Virgo.
Well, thousands of people here are expected today to protest here at the courthouse before marching to the Nassau County Legislature. Of course, this all happening as Washington, D.C. is hosting a massive military parade to celebrate the Army's 250th birthday. This also falling on President Trump's 79th birthday as well. There is civil unrest planned across the country today. Several protests planned here in the New York area as well. Now, No King's Day is branded by organizers as a day of defiance.
So unsurprisingly, on Trump's birthday, we have some of the biggest anti-Trump protests that we may have seen in the country. Now, really, if you think about it, this is anti-Leo rising. Leo rising is social royalty. He is the social king. Drake also has 29 degrees Leo rising, and both of them perform, like they draw large crowds. It comes with the rising. So as you can see, this No Kings protest, you can't make this up, is happening June 14th, where the moon is on Pluto. And we know that Pluto is opposite Leo. Keep that in mind. This is the chart of course, May 5th, 1789. And where was Pluto? Also in Aquarius. And Saturn was getting ready to go into Aries, where it is now. The reason why that's important is because that date represents the beginning of the French Revolutionary War. And if you understand the whole purpose of the French Revolutionary War, it was inherently a fight against monarchy. It led to the Louisiana Purchase and a young United States who had also broken away from taxation without representation, supporting mildly France while not hurting their, connections with England. But I wanted to show you the connection of how Pluto in Aquarius opposite Leo has influenced throughout history an awakening of humanity who wish to fight back against oppression or their view against the prevailing monarchs. Of course, in this age, it's corporations and politics. Now, digging deeper into these current conflicts, I want to shift your focus to 2 dates. April 2026, where we have the Sun, Saturn, Mars, God of War, oh my God, Aries, and of course, subsequently, May of 2026, when we're going to have the Sun, Uranus, Gemini trans. You want to assume that everything that we're experiencing is actually preparing us for that date. Everything up until that date is going to prepare to take these issues potentially to a more global level before we activate what everyone's going to do during that. For example, why is the Sun-Uranus conjunction in Gemini next year, May, somewhat significant? Because the very last time we had a Sun-Uranus conjunction going into Gemini was when we started to turn the tides of World War II, 1942. We also want to take into account March 20th, 2003, the Iraqi war. Some people are saying this conflict between Iran and Iraq reminds them of this. Well, we know that Uranus was just coming into Pisces, and as Uranus is getting ready to go into Gemini today, or throughout the next couple of months, Uranus will have made a 90-degree square, thus integrating more of what has been activated since 2003. Which, if you think Israel's influence in the Middle East since 2003 and before, of course, are leading to the conflicts we're seeing today. Not, of course, blaming one side for this, but of course their involvement and presence, it'd be interesting to study. So we are about a week from the Sun and Jupiter conjunction square Neptune and Saturn, which I think is going to climax a lot of what's been activating up until this point, or at least crazy integration. Another good thing to know is we didn't have the last Saturn Jupiter conjunct since 2020, so this is the first time they're getting ready to square and 90 degree each other. Then the Sun in July is going to be further in Cancer, but we're going to have Mars on the South Node. That's the important part of this date. Keep that in mind. We had 3 God of War contracts, 2020. It was in Capricorn, 2022. It was in Aquarius, 2024. It was in Pisces. And as you can see, 2026, it's going to be in Aries. So the South Node is going to begin to shift the strategic outlook of certain countries, the social rhetoric around whether people should enter these conflicts. Then, of course, August, we're going to have the Sun in Leo that will have made its opposition of Pluto and Aquarius, very important. And Mars will now be opposite Neptune and Saturn. Okay, this is going to be right before we get ready for that Virgo eclipse. Everything that, of course, will kick off in the summer is going to heat up during Leo. And guess what? Uranus is in Gemini. And last but not least, September is where we're going to have this eclipse in Virgo, which is now the harvest of what initialized March of 2025 when the Sun in the North Node and Saturn were in Pisces. We even see Saturn has retrograded back into Pisces, re-evaluating the entire collective belief system that we initially activated back in March. So we're going to analyze how over the past 6 months, whether, what was perceived aligns with what's factually, being analyzed, or, regardless, it's getting ready to break through the whole world into the next stage of these conflicts. And that's important to keep in mind because this is the chart of World War II, and the North Node is literally opposite where it's at today, and Uranus had just entered Gemini. So when you hear these people, astrologers, analysts, politicians, all sorts of people in walks in life telling you, hey, we might be entering World War III, it's not coming out of nowhere. You don't need to read tarot or be psychic to see shit is going down. So observe, do not absorb, do not get tricked into fighting a battle that has nothing to do with you. And of course, for those of you who are out there fighting for what you believe in and you're meant to be out there, all power to you. Doesn't matter what side you are, whether you're pro-Israeli, pro-Palestinian, pro-Trump, anti-ICE. If you're doing what you're meant to be doing, you're a part of history. Just don't be a statistic and don't get murked out here, you heard? So as we've mentioned before, This is all getting ready to set up this 2026 date. The eclipse we're going to have at Virgo at the South Node to March of 2026 in Pisces will prepare directly one of the most epic new moons in Aries, which suggests that these current conflicts will be broken through into a global level. Not like it's the first time it's happened, but comment down your thoughts below on what that means to you. Mainly, do you think things will kind of break out before September, in between September to March, or by April of next year? Those are 3 periods that we'll either see things intensify up until then, or will have already gone down, albeit it's been happening. So